Hi, folks. Brother Nero here. This is our first episode of the Shadow Path Diabolist. This is going to be the new show that replaces my Dark Illumination Report show. And this is where we're going to talk about Shadow Path Diabolism and everything that means and help beginners understand what we're all about and what the ministry is all about. So, let me first start off by talking a little bit about what the different shows are going to be. The Shadow Path Diabolism show is going to be the basics of Shadow Path Diabolism, obviously. And then the Dark Illumination Report is going to be changing formats. So we're going to be doing like a coast to coast AM sort of show about supernatural and the paranormal from a satanic point of view. And then after that, we're going to have the ministry show, which we're going to do, the Devil's Mark Ministry podcast, which is going to focus on what the ministry is doing. And then hopefully, eventually, we're going to have some new shows coming up. We're in the middle of negotiating some new shows with some of our leadership team, and we're trying to see if we can make that happen. I think you're really going to enjoy some of those shows. So I'm really looking forward to bringing that to you. I'm very proud of some of the things we got going on. Now, for today's show, I just want to do a little bit of an introduction here. Um, the first thing I want to talk about is, it's very important when you're a spiritual Satanist, when you're a religious Satanist, to really focus on the gods. Because when you're an atheistic Satanist, you don't have the support, you don't have anything to believe in other than yourself. And life can become very overwhelming. Life can become difficult. Um, it's very important that when you're having a hard time in life, you remember that this is just a temporary time in your life. This is just a moment in your life. This is just a drop of water in the ocean. There are so many things that you have to look forward to, so many things that you have to experience. And many people, when they have a hard time in life, especially when they're going through a hard time in relationships and just with their family or their kids or whatever it is, they tend to get so focused in on what's happening to them, they forget that this is just a brief moment. It's just a drop of water in the ocean. It's not your whole life. It's not everything you are, and it's not going to last forever. So you have to remember that Satan is eternal, that the gods are eternal, that this life is eternal, and this is just a moment you're struggling with. So remember that when times get hard. And remember that just because Satan doesn't answer right away doesn't mean he's not there. Sometimes there are things we have to learn, sometimes there are things we have to experience in order to grow as a person and as a diabolist. That's very important to remember. And sometimes Satan lets us go through struggles so that we can strengthen ourselves, so that we can strengthen our faith, strengthen ourselves as people, and develop ourselves into who we're supposed to be. And eventually, He'll come and help us along the way, just when we least expect it. I can tell you from my own personal experience, there have been many times where I felt that maybe Satan had forgotten about me or maybe forsaken me. And just when I least expected it, that's when he came in to help me. And it was clear that it was his presence that came to help me. And there was no doubt about that. So Satan can sometimes leave us for quite a while to suffer through experiences so we can strengthen ourselves. And he doesn't always come to our rescue right away. He lets us experience that, and try to learn from it. So don't think that he's abandoning you just because you don't get the answers you expect to get right away. And don't think that he's not going to be there when you need him, or that the demons are not watching and observing and aware of what's going on in your life. That's very important to keep in mind. The other thing I want to point out is that when you're a spiritual Satanist or a diabolist, as opposed to a atheistic Satanist, an atheist only has themselves to rely on. They only have their intellect and their beliefs, whatever they may be, to rely on. They don't have anything spiritual to hold them up. They don't have anything to believe in other than their own moral code. As a diabolist, as a Satanist, you have your belief in Satan, your belief in the powers of darkness, and your belief in magic to hold you up. And if you've ever had any real experiences at all spiritual, you know that you have that power behind you, and all you have to do is have a little bit of faith, and they'll come through. Like I said, the biggest thing is just to remember that Satan doesn't answer in your time. He answers in his time. And I can tell you from personal experience and from the experience of other people I've known in Satanism that they've often thought that Satan has abandoned them. And just when they thought everything was lost, they ended up getting some help. I'm sure that I'll have Marie Ravensol on here at some point to talk about some of her personal experiences where she thought all her hope was lost and all things were going wrong for her. And Satan helped her out in some of the most difficult times in her life. And I really want to get her on here to talk about that because I think it's so important for people to know that no matter where you're at, Satan hasn't forgotten you. The other thing I want to tell you a little bit about is one of the reasons why we're doing this paranormal show that's coming up with the Dark Illumination Report is because I've always wanted to do a coast to coast AM type of show. And I've always wanted to examine things like the Nephilim and Bigfoot and aliens from a satanic point of view and give a satanic perspective. And I've never been able to do that. So this is an opportunity for us to do a paranormal type show. And I just felt like the Shadow Path, the Dark Illumination Report podcast name was more conducive to a paranormal show title. And I felt like it was time for a change to do a different type of podcast. And as time goes on and I get to know this software a little bit, I'm going to be doing more of that. We're going to be showing you more videos and doing more instructional videos and be giving lectures to help educate you about different parts of satanic history and different organizations, and really going into some detailed documentary styled podcasts so that you can really learn a lot about Satanism. I really feel it's important for the ministry to teach people, the true history of Satanism, because I feel like there's so many people that are deceptive and so many people out there that don't really care about teaching Satan's children and helping Satan's children to understand him better. I think there's a lot of people out there who have very bad intentions. So I want to make sure that we use these podcasts, all the ministry podcasts, to provide a really good education to young Satanists out there. So we're really going to try to be doing more of a documentary style podcast using references that we can back up and that we can source so that you know that the information we're giving you is reliable and that we're trying to actually help educate you. I think so many young Satanists don't really have anyone they can rely on to tell them the truth and give them good information. So we're going to try to provide that for people. And it doesn't matter whether you agree with everything we say. It doesn't matter if you don't want to be a part of the ministry. We're not doing this just to try to recruit people or just to try to get members. We're doing this because we want to spread the belief in Satan. We're doing this because we want to help our community. We're doing this because we don't want to see people be abused and mistreated in Satan's name. And there are so many people that have such bad intentions that we feel the only way we can really help our community is by trying to educate them, regardless of whether they become a member of the ministry. And we're going to try to provide those shows for you, and we're going to try to become that reliable source of information for you. So I hope that you'll join me in the future and in future episodes. And I hope you'll join all of our leadership team here at the ministry in whatever podcast they do to, so that we can help you and answer your questions. I think that'll be it for this little introductory episode. I hope you'll be back next time. And I hope if you see this on a later broadcast, that you'll come back next week. We're going to try to do it every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Central. So I hope you'll join me for the next episode. Thanks. See you next time.